They say the heart doesn't crave what it already owns. It craves what slips away, what feels uncertain, what refuses to kneel. Love doesn't burn bright in the comfort of flattery. It catches fire when pride is tested, when ego is wounded just enough to make the soul restless. The chase becomes intoxicating, the longing unbearable, and that quiet H turns into madness. Because nothing shakes desire more than being denied the throne it thought was guaranteed. Mystery has always been the most seductive force in the human experience. When everything is revealed too quickly, when every question has an answer, when every move is predictable, interest begins to fade like smoke carried away by the wind. Desire thrives in uncertainty, in the unknown, in the spaces left unspoken. To step back, to hold something of yourself in reserve, is to create a magnetic pull that no amount of direct attention could ever achieve. It is not cruelty, it is art, the art of leaving just enough in the shadows that the imagination runs wild. And nothing is more intoxicating than the imagination, because it fills the gaps with fantasies far more powerful than reality could ever be. The heart does not race for what it already possesses in abundance, it races for what feels rare, elusive, slightly out of reach. Mystery whispers, "You don't fully know me yet. You haven't earned all of me. There is more here than you can see." That whisper ignites a fire, because people are drawn to puzzles they cannot solve, stories they cannot fully read, and souls they cannot completely own. The moment every piece of the puzzle is given away, the game ends, the excitement vanishes, and the chase dissolves. But when pieces are withheld, when silence speaks louder than words, curiosity sharpens into obsession. Think about the way the mind reacts to unanswered questions. It circles them endlessly, replaying conversations, analyzing gestures, searching for clues. Mystery plants a seed that grows into restlessness. It says, "Figure me out if you can," and in that challenge lies irresistible allure. Suddenly, attention becomes sharper, emotions become more intense, and even the smallest sign of approval feels monumental. A glance, a smile, a moment of closeness, it carries the weight of gold, because it was not guaranteed, it was not constant, it was not easy. Mystery does not mean coldness, it means balance. It is the refusal to drown someone in approval, the refusal to make yourself too available, too predictable, too ordinary. It is in the pauses, the moments of distance, the slight unpredictability that desire grows. Because when you hold something back, when you protect a part of yourself from immediate surrender, you create the kind of magnetic pull that words alone could never achieve. Those who are bathed constantly in validation grow numb to it, but those who are starved of it crave it like water in the desert. That is the secret of mystery. It awakens thirst. It teaches the mind to value what is not given freely, to cherish what must be earned, to hold tightly to what feels uncertain. And in that craving, in that hunger, in that insatiable desire to finally unlock the enigma, you find a love not of comfort but of madness. Because nothing grips the heart more fiercely than the desire to finally touch what remains just beyond reach. Challenge has always been the spark that turns ordinary attention into burning desire. When everything feels too easy, when every step forward comes without resistance, the value of the connection begins to shrink. There is no fire in what can be gained without effort, no intensity in what does not demand something from the soul. Challenge awakens something primal. It forces the spirit to rise, to prove, to fight, and in that struggle, attraction deepens into something far more powerful than simple affection. The absence of challenge is comfort, and comfort breeds complacency, but the presence of challenge ignites the kind of pursuit that refuses to rest until it has conquered the impossible. Resistance is the language of intensity. It is the subtle refusal to bend completely, the quiet strength that says, "Not everything will be given to you." That refusal does not drive desire away. It pulls it closer. When faced with resistance, the heart becomes stubborn, unwilling to surrender, unwilling to accept defeat. The more difficult the path, the more rewarding the prize feels at the end. And so the mind begins to obsess, begins to calculate, begins to pour more and more energy into a chase that otherwise might have ended in boredom. The fire is not in the gift itself, but in the difficulty of winning it. Challenge is not cruelty. It is respect for your own worth. It is standing tall enough to say that not everyone earns the same access, the same closeness, the same devotion. This self-respect radiates outward, and the one who encounters it cannot help but be captivated. People crave the things that demand effort, that refuse to fall at their feet, that stand strong in the face of persuasion. When approval is delayed, when closeness is rationed, when devotion is not immediate, it creates the kind of intensity that soft words alone could never achieve. Every moment of resistance heightens the desire to break through. The chase becomes a storm fueled by pride, fueled by ego, fueled by the unshakable need to overcome. And that is where passion grows, not in the calm of ease, but in the chaos of pursuit. Challenge awakens obsession because it creates an enemy of defeat. No one wants to feel powerless. No one wants to feel denied. And so they fight harder. They give more. They push beyond what they thought they could give, all in the name of breaking down the wall that stands before them. And when that wall finally shows a crack, when the strength of challenge finally bends just enough to let a sliver of warmth through, that moment feels electric. It feels monumental. It feels like triumph. Because what was fought for with sweat, persistence, and restless longing becomes priceless. That is the secret. Challenge transforms affection into madness, because it forces the heart to earn what it craves, and what is earned through struggle is never taken lightly. Approval is a powerful drug, but like any drug, its effect weakens when it is given in excess. When every action is praised, when every gesture is rewarded with constant admiration, the magic begins to fade. What once felt meaningful becomes ordinary, and what once carried weight becomes light as air. Withholding approval is not about cruelty. It is about restoring value. It is about allowing desire to grow stronger in the absence of endless reassurance. Because when approval is not guaranteed, it becomes the most craved form of nourishment. The mind does not truly value what it always has, it values what it fears losing. Constant praise can create a sense of entitlement, a belief that no matter what is done, validation will always follow. But when that validation is withheld, when silence replaces applause, the heart begins to ache. Doubt creeps in, and with doubt comes longing. The question arises, did I do enough? Was I good enough? Have I lost something I once held securely? That question lingers like a whisper in the dark, gnawing at pride, stirring obsession. Scarcity transforms approval into gold. A single word of acknowledgement feels enormous when it is not freely given. A subtle smile, a small gesture of recognition, a brief glance of admiration, it all becomes magnified, more intense, more precious. The hunger for it grows each time it is denied, and the chase to earn it becomes relentless. This is the paradox: the less approval you give, the more power it holds, and the more deeply it binds the one who seeks it. Withholding approval also creates a sense of challenge. It says, not everything you do will be enough to move me. That resistance ignites a fire, forcing the spirit to strive harder, to dig deeper, to prove itself worthy. The ego, once inflated by easy validation, now feels pierced, and in that wound lies the seed of obsession. Because nothing unsettles pride more than uncertainty, and nothing compels desire more than the need to restore what has been shaken. There is a difference between coldness and selective approval. Coldness pushes away, but selectivity pulls closer. It is the difference between indifference and intrigue. Indifference kills attraction, but intrigue fuels it endlessly. When approval is rare but sincere, it carries an intensity that floods the heart with satisfaction. It is no longer background noise, it is music. It is no longer expected, it is a victory. The truth is simple: what is always given loses its shine, but what is withheld becomes priceless. Approval, when carefully rationed, turns into the very thing that drives deeper affection, stronger pursuit, and unshakable attachment. In its absence, longing grows wild. In its scarcity, desire becomes uncontrollable. And when finally a touch of it is granted, it feels like the world itself has shifted. That is the power of withholding approval. It transforms ordinary interest into a desperate need, a craving that cannot be silenced. Emotional disruption is the spark that shakes the soul out of its comfort zone. When everything feels predictable, when emotions flow too smoothly without resistance, desire begins to cool. But when confidence is shaken, even slightly, the heart begins to beat differently. It starts to question, to doubt, to crave reassurance that is no longer easily found. This disruption is not about destruction, it is about awakening. It forces the spirit to feel alive, to fight harder, to cling tighter, because nothing is more intoxicating than the fear of slipping away from what once felt secure. To disrupt emotions is to stir the waters of the mind. Imagine a still pond, beautiful, but calm, almost lifeless. Then imagine a stone being thrown in. The ripples spread, the surface shatters, and suddenly all attention is focused on the disturbance. This is what happens when the expected is replaced by the unexpected, when certainty gives way to unpredictability. The mind cannot rest. It replays moments, it reanalyzes words, it overthinks every silence. And in that restless state, attachment grows deeper. Ego thrives on certainty. It loves to believe, I am wanted, I am secure, I am untouchable. But when that belief is shaken, when silence replaces affirmation, when distance replaces warmth, the ego suffers a bruise. That bruise, however, does not push love away. On the contrary, it binds it closer, because the wounded pride now seeks healing, and the only place it can find that healing is in the very presence it feels deprived of. Emotional disruption makes the soul chase even when it thought it no longer needed to. This is the secret of intensity. Comfort soothes, but disruption consumes. When someone feels too comfortable, they may begin to drift, to take affection for granted, to believe the bond will always remain. But introduce even the smallest fracture, the tiniest doubt, and suddenly they are awake again. They notice the distance, they feel the absence, they long for the closeness they assumed was permanent. That absence becomes a storm, turning security into hunger. Disruption is not cruelty. It is the reminder of value. It shows that connection is not guaranteed, that affection cannot be treated carelessly. It repositions worth by demanding attention, focus, and effort. And when the emotions are stirred, when the heart is both unsettled and captivated at the same time, the result is obsession. The need to restore balance becomes overwhelming. The ego cannot tolerate defeat, and so it doubles its efforts, pouring out more intensity, more energy, more devotion. And when the storm finally settles, when warmth returns after the cold, the relief is euphoric. That relief is what makes the bond feel stronger, more addictive, more unforgettable. Because without disruption, there is no contrast, and without contrast, there is no fire. Emotional disruption breathes life into love, forcing it to grow sharper, wilder, and more desperate. It proves that the heart does not crave peace. It craves the turbulence that makes peace feel like paradise when it finally arrives. Scarcity has always been the secret currency of desire. What is abundant is rarely treasured, but what is rare is guarded fiercely. The human mind places the highest value on what feels difficult to obtain, what is not freely available, what carries the risk of being lost forever. Scarcity transforms even the simplest act of attention into a priceless gift. It sharpens focus, heightens emotions, and creates an obsession that comfort could never achieve. When presence is constant, it becomes invisible, but when it is rare, it becomes unforgettable. The psychology of scarcity is simple. People chase what they fear losing. When attention is always available, it is taken for granted. But when it becomes selective, when it is given in small, deliberate doses, it transforms into a treasure worth fighting for. Suddenly, every word, every glance, every touch holds amplified meaning. The heart clings tightly because it knows this moment is not endless. That fleeting nature gives it a weight that abundance could never provide. Scarcity breeds urgency. The mind begins to whisper, what if this is the last time? What if this connection slips away? That thought is unbearable, and in that fear lies intensity. The heart cannot rest because it knows what is scarce is precious, and what is precious must be protected at all costs. The soul begins to fight harder, invest deeper, cling stronger, all in the desperate attempt to preserve what it cannot bear to lose. There is power in absence. A small withdrawal of attention creates a vacuum that the mind rushes to fill. In that vacuum, longing grows. Silence becomes deafening, distance becomes unbearable, and the craving for closeness intensifies. The one who withholds becomes the one who controls because scarcity shifts the balance of power. When something is easily available, the one receiving it feels dominant, secure, untouchable. But when it is scarce, the roles reverse. The seeker becomes the one who bends, who chases, who craves. Scarcity also elevates worth. Think of the way diamonds are valued, not because they are the strongest stones in existence, but because they are rare. Their rarity gives them status, power, and allure. The same applies to attention, affection, and approval. When given sparingly, they carry the weight of diamonds. When given excessively, they become like dust, everywhere, unnoticed, uncherished. Scarcity makes love feel like luxury, something not easily earned, something that must be respected. And when, finally, the scarce gift is granted, when closeness returns after absence, when attention shines after silence, the relief is intoxicating. It feels like a victory, like a blessing, like water in a desert. That satisfaction is addictive because the mind never forgets the taste of something rare. It will chase it endlessly, fight for it tirelessly, cling to it desperately. That is the power of scarcity. It transforms affection into obsession, turning ordinary love into a maddening need that refuses to let go. Rejection is often feared, but in the realm of desire, it holds a hidden power. To deny what the ego expects, to resist what pride assumes is guaranteed, is to plant a seed that grows wild in the heart. Reverse psychology of desire works in silence. It is the act of turning away just when someone leans in, of pulling back just when they expect to be embraced. This denial does not push them away, it pulls them closer, because the mind cannot easily accept loss, and the heart cannot rest when it feels unfinished. The ego craves control. It thrives on the certainty that affection will always be returned, that devotion will always be present. But when that certainty is shattered, when desire is met with resistance instead of surrender, obsession is born. Pride cannot accept rejection, and so it begins a battle to reclaim what slipped through its fingers. That battle is what fuels madness, the need to prove, the need to win, the need to conquer the resistance that should have yielded, but did not. Reverse psychology awakens a paradox. The more you pull away, the harder they chase. The more you resist, the more they persist. It is not about cruelty, it is about balance. Too much giving breeds complacency, but denial sparks intensity. The refusal to comply with expectations creates tension, and tension is the lifeblood of attraction. It makes every interaction charged, every silence meaningful, every glance heavy with unspoken longing. To reject lightly is to stir curiosity. To reject firmly is to shake pride. Both forms work their way into the mind, replaying over and over like a song that cannot be forgotten. Why was I denied? What could I have done differently? How do I break through this wall? These questions haunt the ego, fueling a relentless pursuit. That pursuit is the proof of power, not in giving, but in withholding, not in surrendering, but in resisting. The beauty of this dynamic lies in contrast. Imagine constant acceptance. It soothes but never excites, it comforts but never consumes. Now imagine moments of rejection. They sting, they bruise, they leave a mark that cannot be ignored. And it is in that sting that passion grows. The ego does not want to retreat defeated, it wants to return victorious. It wants to turn the no into a yes, the coldness into warmth, the resistance into surrender. That longing transforms into devotion because the victory will feel monumental once it is finally achieved. And when the resistance finally breaks, when denial finally softens, the satisfaction is unmatched. It feels like triumph, like destiny fulfilled, like a prize earned after endless effort. That intensity is not born from easy acceptance. It is born from struggle, from rejection, from the reversal of expectation. Reverse psychology of desire ensures that love is not handed over freely, but fought for, bled for, chased until madness takes over. For nothing enslaves the heart more deeply than the denial of what it thought it deserved. Desire has never been about comfort. It has always been about tension, resistance, and the quiet sting that makes the heart restless. Mystery keeps the mind awake, challenge sharpens the chase, the scarcity of approval makes affection priceless, and disruption reminds the soul that nothing is ever secure. Scarcity intensifies value, and rejection fuels the kind of obsession that refuses to fade. Together, these forces weave a web stronger than soft words or constant attention could ever build. It is in the denial, the distance, the uncertainty, that longing grows fierce. And when at last the walls break, when warmth returns after the cold, the relief is so powerful it feels like madness. That is the secret. Love does not burn brightest in ease, but in the ache of pride wounded, in the hunger created by scarcity, in the fire of desire that rises against resistance. Hurt the ego, and you do not lose the heart. You bind it tighter until the craving becomes unshackable and the love becomes unstoppable.